You did.
I do big dad stretches and big dad sneezes. That's all I do.
Are we just at that age where we do big dad sneezes and big dad
Yeah.
stretches?
I've been doing big dad sneezes since I was like 14 years old.
Maybe you've always just been a big dad.
I've always been a big dad.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Double Dip Draft. Hi, I'm Cabral. Joining me today.
What do you coach? Tell me what you coach, and then I'll tell you what I coach.
Okay. Well, I coach the hash-slinging age slashers.
And I'm Spood, and I coach the also the Hashtag Slashers. No, I coach the Southtown Sand Slashers, and we're gonna be your division hosts for the Rocket Division.
Ooh, we're taking off at the speed of light. We got some really fun teams. Genuinely, so it's our first time that we've gone through and we've done a point system. I had a lot of fun with the point system. I like the variety that we get from so many of the Pokemon.
We wound up with a very different looking roster than we have ever seen before. And, we might put some more guardrails on it going forward. Like I think pretty much everybody prefers points at this point. Like now that we've already built out the infrastructure and we've gotten feedback from the drafting process, it seems like basically everybody I've talked to has said that they like points more than tier. Yeah. That said, we're going to see, especially in this division, but in other divisions as well, that some people really did just go all in on gobbling up all of the most powerful Pokemon and then having like a trailing garbage like bottom half of their draft. And we'll have to see if that ends up being like an overly strong strategy or if maybe they'll be paying for it with the lack of flexibility.
Yeah. On top of that, this is also our first 32-player season, which I'm very excited for. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. We have a bunch of new players that came in, some olds that have returned, and some olds that have not come back this season. And I think a lot of the kind of the standings are going to shake around a lot during the season.
Yeah, I think that, notably, unfortunately, IDM not playing with us this season is the first time in a main season that he's sat out since the very, very beginning. And I think even that extends back to, like, Spokemon Smowdown League. Like, that was, he's been playing constantly since the very beginning. So this is, like, the first time in nearly a decade that he hasn't been doing a draft league with us. So very sad to not see him here. But if we're going to try and look on the bright side of that from the competitor's perspective, that means that, IDM was effectively an auto loss for almost every player in the league. I think there was like a very small stable of like maybe 4 or 5 people that had like a realistic chance of somewhat regularly beating IDM, and everyone else at like a mid or low level was effectively instantly losing. Yeah. So without him here, that really I think shakes it up. I think we're going to see a lot more people with like identical records, identical differentials. Like we're going to see a lot of head-to-head tiebreakers. I think we might even see the first 3-way tie.
That'd be insane. We'll That'd be a first. Because we
that
still
would be a
haven't had
first.
that yet.
That's true, but with no IDM and with 4 divisions, it's 8 players each. Like there are a lot of opportunities for some shenanigans to afoot themselves.
That is 16 players for playoffs. I'm so excited when we get into the matches. But first, we got to get into the teams. Do you want to introduce the first set of the first team for us and their Pokemon?
We're really good at this. I would love to. The first in the Rocket Division, blasting off at the speed of light, we have got Aurora, coach of the Hoensbroek Haunters, and she drafted the following 11 Pokemon. She has Naganadel, Mega Mawile, Zapdos, Swampert, Leavanny, Delphox, Terracaptain Pangoro, Terracaptain Cryogonal, Knacklestack, Volbeat, and Jellicent.
I like this draft. It's funny. So, first off, Naganadel. That thing just goes fast, hits hard. It gets Nasty Plot, by the way, so if you're not ready for that, it will just kill you. 127 special attack with a Nasty Plot kills most things in general.
Yes, Naganadel is kind of weird. It was sort of just to be honest with you, and kind of shameful to admit, I'm so sorry to give away the industry secret here. When we were doing tiering, we'd basically been at it for several hours. There were a lot of Pokemon in Nat decks to tier. We had a lot of opinions, 5 people going back and forth. And at the end of the draft, we were kind of sitting there like, all right, any last, points of business to talk about? And I forget who even brought it up. I think it might have been Claire. But someone was like, yeah, maybe we should like unban Naganadel. And we were all just like, why? And they're just like, I think it was Claire, but whoever it was, it's just like, yeah, I don't know. Just, it's not like that good. And we were just like, I guess. All right, whatever. And so we unbanned Naganadel because we were just so tired. And we came back to it later. This thing is crazy. The stats aren't like mind-bogglingly great,
it does
but
die to most hits.
Move pool is, and where it is min-maxed hard with Beast Boost and a crazy high special attack and speed.
Yeah. And that's just terrifying. And that complements really well, actually, with Mega Mawile being Steel Fairy, and then we have the Poison Dragon. And Mega Mawile does silly things with Intimidating, while Mawile still, you can switch that around because in our league, you don't have to Terra right away your Mega,
yeah.
your Mega Pokemon right away.
I know. We're on it. It is not 9:16 in the morning Pacific time.
It is not 9:16 in the morning Pacific time. But we do also have Swampert and Zapdos, who are really fun just with themselves. Like, it's a fun little core, I would say. They bounce each other well. Zapdos dealing with grass types, Swampert dealing with anything else.
Yeah, honestly, like, Swampert is just like a super reliable Pokemon. Water Ground, a super desirable type. Pretty much just a draft staple. You're always going to see Swampert and Gastrodon go pretty much without fail. And usually you'll also see people getting the dregs like Seismitoad, maybe even Whiscash, depending on how desperate, things get. We saw Marshtomp go last season even. So, like, that typing just in and of itself. Yeah, and Quagsire, too, is very popular. You see this typing going a lot, and Swampert is just so good with, like, its bulk, its great typing, its access to a slow flip turn, stealth rocks, and just a lot of random sort of utility stuff. Like, Swampert is just so reliable. Zapdos also super reliable and fairly flexible. It can also, it's just fast and strong enough that it can do strong, fast offensive stuff, but it is also very reliable as, like, a bulky switch in with like static and slow, volt switch or even U-turn to, position other things in. So I think like Naganadel is very well supported by that core.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of this draft, kind of looking over it as we go through the rest of these Pokemon and look at them, it's just really well-rounded. I don't see a ton of glaring issues whatsoever with this. I think Cryogonal as the wall with the Terra options a really nice touch. Pangoro is silly. That thing has some really good abilities, by the way. It gets Iron Fist, Mold Breaker, and Scrappy.
He gets a Scrafty. It's like, how Mega Kangaskhan has like the little baby. Pangoro has a little Scrafty next to it.
Yeah, I love that idea. And that thing gets Bullet Punch and like Mach Punch, I'm pretty sure, as well.
I think it gets Iron Fist, right?
Yeah, so it does get Iron Fist.
They're also boosted.
Great abilities. It hits really hard. It gets Power Up Punch in case you want it. It also Parting Shots for some reason.
It's a Dark type. Dark types love Parting Shot.
That's so true. They do that. It does get Dual Chop. I'm a very big fan of Dual Chop.
Post Heat Miser clip here.
Yeah. But it's a good Terra Captain, and then Nacrosac's here, and that's a funny little dude, because that also gets the same stuff that Garganacl gets, and that stuff is dumb, because Purifying Salt, ghost damage dealt to you is halved, and you cannot be statused, ever.
Yeah. So Knucklestack, honestly, with Eviolite, is a perfectly serviceable, like, bulky wall, and with Salt Cure, very annoying, Recover, very annoying. Immunity to being Thunder Waved or Toxic or Burnt, you can just switch this thing in very reliably on stuff and not die. And, at 1 point, frankly, like, it's kind of a steal. Maybe it should have even been 2 points. Who knows? There's always going to be all these little micro adjustments we go up or down. But Knucklestack at 1 point, Aurora saw the value. And she was right, because, that thing is super strong.
And it just sets up rocks really nicely. And it does get Heavy Slam, which is really funny. I like that.
I don't think Knucklestack is that heavy.
It could be. I don't know. It looks heavy. I don't think I could pick it up, so.
He's just a little guy. He's just a little table.
Yeah, that's fair. Delphox is here. Delphox is a fantastic fire psychic type. I don't know. I like it. It does things well. I like Delphox. I've never used it, but I've kind of always wanted to. Kind of looking back into like draft stuff, I've never had an opportunity to draft it, my own volition. But I don't know. It seems fun. It seems neat.
Yeah, it's good. You know, it's decent speed. It's decent typing. It seems like the kind of thing that, you know, ends up filling in a lot of holes on a lot of drafts. Like, I think you find very often that you're not necessarily gunning for Delphox at the beginning, but you see it halfway through your draft, and you're like, that would patch up some holes.
Yeah, because, you know, 104 speed, it calm minds or nasty plots, by the way. It also has agility, too, which is kind of crazy to me.
It's a pretty decent choice of user, too.
Yeah, and it's got a pretty decent move pool overall, which is nice.
Yeah.
What else is here? Leavanny's here. That thing's silly. I love Leavanny.
Leavanny is pretty decent in general, but its main application, and you're going to, this is a theme through the rest of this draft, in this you know, division. Leavanny is here mostly to be a sticky web setter.
Yeah. We do have a prank setter with Volbeat, by the way.
Yeah, Volbeat. Volbeat is, you know, it's a discount prankster user. You know, it gets like Tailwind and it can Tail Glow. I don't know why you would do that, because Tail Glow is a great move, don't get me wrong, but you're papering over like a base 40 special attack, and it's just, I don't know. Volbeat sucks. It's not a Pokemon. It is a set of moves that you can do quickly, and that's it.
Yeah. Overall, I think looking at this, I do see some potential issues with like ground types against Aurora's team, but nothing crazy. That's not like, you know, Leavanny's here to kill ground types potentially. Jellicin's also here, and like Zapdos isn't hit by ground moves.
Yeah. I mean, like, if I was looking at this draft, you know, like, if this draft was in a division with, like, Zygarde 10, that would be like, holy cow, that's a huge problem. But otherwise, you know, like, Aurora is a really strong player, super consistent, you know, playoff staple. I think she only ever missed playoffs out of season 1, and that was because she was running kind of a mean, like, Mega Bomb Snow team, and it was a very sort of informal and whack season. But she's, like, just so good. So when I look at this team and I think, yeah, there's, like, a bit of a ground weakness for most of the Pokemon, but she has Zapdos and Cryogonal, I think she is more than capable of using both of them to the extent that they would need to be used to cover that weakness. You know, I think that if there's a playstyle adjustment that needs to be made to cover for, like, a minor type weakness, Aurora is more than capable of identifying and playing around it.
Yeah. No, that's completely fair. But I think that roughly wraps it up over here with Aurora's team. Do you want me to tell you the next team? Do you want me to?
I would be thrilled.
Well, we have Menma of the Minnesota Jynx. We have Iron Valiant, Roaring Moon, Pecharunt, Starmie.
Boo! Boo, Pecharunt! Boo!
Namorous Therian, Melmetal's here. Then Camerupt Mega, Orbeetle, Morgrem, and Hitmontop. There is not a Terra Pokemon on this team. And I think it is clear when you see Iron Valiant, Roaring Moon, and Melmetal that you're like, hey, you're starting to run low on points there.
Yeah, this is one of the prime examples of a draft that is like super top heavy, and then the bottom half is kind of like, whatever, I'll get Mega Camerupt, why not? You know? I think most of the time, literally the first 6 that he drafted are going to be what you see. Like, I you know, you might see maybe Enamorous swapped for Morgrem or Orbeetle or something, or maybe you'll see, like, Hitmontop over Starmie if, you know, he wants a different spinner or whatever, but for the most part, yeah, he has, like, a core, and he's going to be sticking to that core very aggressively.
Yeah. No, for sure. And then looking at this, though, I see Melmetal and Roaring Moon with over 100 HP. Everything else is lower than 88 HP.
Yeah, not the bulkiest draft. I mean, like we said before with Aurora, it's like, you know, if you have the game pieces to handle those situations, then it's not the end of the world to have a low stat average. Like, you just have to be aware of it. And frankly, you know, Pecharunt has, like, the really high, you know, Pecharunt has its own bulk, basically. Melmetal can be bulky. You know, really, this draft is obviously gunning for just, like, sweeping with Iron Valiant and Roaring Moon. You know, either or both. and then having Melmetal to soak up any incoming damage with maybe like an assault vest or like an iron defense set. And in general, just Menma just wants to sweep stuff, just wants to kill everything, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. The only thing I'm also noticing here is looking at the speed tiers. Yes, Iron Valley, Roaring Moon, and Stormy are really fast, and they do a lot of stuff. Beyond those three, everything else is less than 90 base speed, and that can be a really big issue, especially if you get something like Sticky Webs coming in. Thankfully, we do see 2 Rapid Spinners, but Sticky Webs could be kind of an issue because if you're not faster than your opponent, and looking at some of these stats here, Iron Valiant does get killed by stuff if it's not fast.
Yeah. So kind of the weird thing about Iron Valiant and Roaring Moon is like neither of these are supported on this team natively by Electric Terrain or Sun, respectively. Like if you really wanted to stretch, you could probably manually set up one or both. But in general, these things are going to be probably relying on booster energy. And if you come in on webs, that takes precedence over your boost on Quark Driver Photosynthesis, to my knowledge. So like if maybe you're spec'd out to go plus speed with the booster energy, but you come in on webs with like Valiant and you're maybe like a special Valiant or whatever, maybe you get the special attack boost instead. And instead of offsetting the speed increase or decrease, it's just like kind of compounding it. So and obviously, again, Valiant and Moon, they really generally are going to want booster energy or, at least some kind of offensive item. They're not going to love being relegated to using boots. And so you kind of just need to be super on top of keeping webs off of your team. And there's, again, a lot of webs in this division. So I think that's going to be an ongoing struggle for Menma. If I had to guess, like looking at his team, that is going to be annoying. And one of those things that maybe he could do as a countermeasure is put his own webs down with Orbeetle, which is probably a big part of why he drafted Orbeetle. But then if you're bringing in Orbeetle, you have to throw out one of your 6 really good guys to bring in Orbeetle. So
yeah, because that's the thing is just looking at the team, like you said, like week to week, I don't see Iron Valley, Roaring Moon, Starmie, Melmetal, and Enamortherian not coming. Like, it's very likely they'll probably come every single week. And there might be some little variations here and there, but it feels like with how the draft makeup is, you're going to see the bigger Pokemon here for sure. And the Starmie, we were talking about it before recording, is probably going to be a catch-all for so many different things to help the team and alleviate some stuff.
Yeah. Starmie is a really splashable Pokemon, very good. It's a reliable spinner, but it's also good special attacker, and it's got a very deep move pool. And just in general, I really like Starmie. I think it's a generally kind of not overlooked Pokemon in draft, but it's pretty high value, I think, more or less no matter where you put it. And I really like Starmie, and I think it is going to serve this team well. I'm just saying that, like, there is definitely a web's weakness that he's going to have to be aware of and be playing around. And that invites some pretty straightforward counterplay to Iron Valiant and Roaring Moon. Yeah. That I'm not saying is going to make them bad or even worse, but it's just going to be like a thing to be aware of. I think in general, Menma correctly identifies that like Valiant and Roaring Moon are very capable of just winning games, and they're just really, really strong, and the counterplay against them is very difficult. And so when there is, you've kind of funneled it down to 1 or 2 things that they have to be afraid of, those are easy to cover. And Melmetal does a great job of covering. I mean, even just those 3 Pokemon, Iron Valiant, Roaring Moon, and Melmetal, that is a wicked strong Dragon Fairy Steel Core.
Yeah. It's really good. I think the only other thought I have is we only have 1 flying Pokemon, and ground Pokemon can potentially be scary in some aspects if not prepared for.
He doesn't have really anything in the way of resists except for Orbeetle, and he has just, like you say, the Enamorous immunity. So, and there's no Terra Captains here either, right? He spent his money high up, so no Terra Captains. He's only got the 10 to pick from. Yeah. So we're gonna have to keep an eye on this, because I could very easily see this draft doing incredibly well, or maybe we'll see if maybe like top loading your draft isn't always going to be the best option. So this is one to keep an eye on, though. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of interesting, we got a new player in the
new player. Let me introduce you to Liz, the coach of the Sunshine State Smolivs, who drafted Annihilate. Ha! Latias, Glimmora, Gardevoir, Noivern, Incineroar, Chansey, Claydol, Terra Captain, Hisuian Electrode, and Mega Steelix.
This is a really fun team, and I want to say this real quick. I love looking at these stat averages here. We see 97 HP. However, there's only 2 Pokemon above 100 HP. In fact, one of them is at 250 HP and doing a lot of heavy lifting, I feel like, for that HP stat.
I know Chansey is supposed to be like a walking egg, but it looks more like an elephant in the room to me, because like Laura, that's not.
Yeah. But here's what's fun looking at this team. I love Chansey being that special wall. Mega Steelix, which you were looking at, actually. We were talking about that when you were doing your initial draft stuff.
I was, yeah.
230 defense with 75 HP is actually really stupid. Can I just say?
Yeah. Every once in a while, there's just like a Pokemon that's like, why is that stat so high? Like, is that really necessary? Yeah, no, Liz has a really cool draft. It's really straightforward, I think. You know, there is, like, the bulk is really obvious where it's placed. You know, Chansey is the special bulk, Steelix is the physical bulk, and Incineroar is kind of, like, hybrid, because it can, you know, I've seen, like, AV sets of, like, Fake Out or whatever, and then, obviously, the very common one is, like, you know, a Boot, Intimidate, Parting Shot type set.
Yep.
So, you know, it's really obvious that the game plan from Liz's draft is to just enable Annihilate, you know?
Yeah.
Get up maybe a screen somewhere, you know, get up a bunch of hazards with Glimmora, and then, you know, bait these, like, U-turns or these reduced damage hits into Annihilate to boost Rage Fist to then start punching through things really hard.
Yeah. I think the only thing here, kind of looking at it, is there are 3 Psychic types. And there are 2 Dragon types as well. I don't know, Gardevoir I feel like fits, but like doesn't fit.
Yeah, Gardevoir is not my favorite. I probably would go with a different fairy because it is kind of compounding that psychic typing. But, you know, I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I just think that generally speaking, the stuff that you look at Gardevoir doing well, like Latias will probably be able to do similar or slightly better. So you might as well kind of commit to like a slightly different archetype on the fairy. But that's really neither here nor there. Like, I actually think looking at this is a pretty reliable draft.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with that. There's a lot of fun to be had, I think, with this draft in general. I love funny Terra Captains. I love Electrode Hisui.
That's a get, yeah. I love that.
That's just so fun because, no, it doesn't hit stupid hard all the time. But, like, you know, whatever Terra it has for the week, if you're not ready for it, then, like, it can hit you very hard. It can also explode, too. That's funny.
Yeah, it gets a Chloroblast,
yes.
I think is what it's called. Does a lot of damage, you know. Being able to Terra Captain, it's just so fast, you know? It's just like such a fast Volt Switch pivot, and, you know, at its cost, and especially with a Terra Captain, like, it's going to be pretty splashable. You know, Noivern does a lot in terms of, like, carrying the speed of this draft, but there's just so many things here. Like, I actually think, if anything, this draft would also have benefited from Sticky Webs to enable Annihilate more. But Annihilate kind of falls into that funny middle area where, like, it doesn't love being slower, but it does love the Defiant boost it gets from switching in on Webs. So, you know, depending on the matchup, that could either be kind of a blessing or a curse.
Yeah, and if anything, if you get Sticky Web, just run a Trick Room team. You have Steelix with Body Press there with 230 defense, so, like, why not?
I don't even know if anything on this team gets Trick Room. Like, maybe one of the Psychic types. I don't know.
Right? I thought it did.
Probably. I mean, I don't know. It just, none of this stuff really wants to be Trick Roomed except for Mega Steelix. Yeah. So it's a bit of a meme.
Just run negative speed. It's easy. It's simple.
Just run room service. Just do the doodle and run room service.
You're so right. Room service is so good. But no, genuinely, I like this draft. I think it's really fun. Liz also being a new player, I'm very excited to see how Liz plays in the draft overall. And as we've already talked about and looked at this division, I think there's going to be a lot of fun just matchups in general.
Yeah, this is going to be, I think, one to keep an eye on. I think Rocket's going to be blasting off, if you know what I mean. Like, it's going to be kind of crazy. But I would love to hear about the next draft in our series if you'd like to introduce me to it.
You want to be here? You want to hear about the Dallas Duckletts? You want to hear about Nihilus because he's got a crazy first pick, which is Kangaskhan Mega Which is crazy. Everything now is 8 points or under. Sorry, 7 points or under. We have Terra Captain Vikavolt, we have Deoxys Defense, Blastoise, Cyclizar, Tinkaton, Smeargle, Nihilego, Golurk, Articuno, and Meganium. And the pick of Kangaskhan Mega alone is really crazy. So the stats on it are not something to be bewildered by. However, Kangaskhan Mega's sort of gimmick, there we go, is like it hits twice. And if I remember correctly, it is half of its like stats are like dealt to its child form, and then that deals it to you, right?
Yeah, so basically whatever attacking move you pick is done twice, and the second time it's done at like, I don't know, half or a third damage or something like that. Like it's greatly reduced. But the thing is that makes Kangaskhan very annoying and very valuable is that, you know, the secondary effects do stack, generally speaking. So the kind of go-to obvious one that most people cite is going to be Power-Up Punch, because you know, Mama Kangaskhan, Power-Up Punch +1, Baby Kangaskhan, Power-Up Punch, you're at +2.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't reduce the secondary effects, you know, that you're doing. Now, Mega Kangaskhan's a really weird one because, you know, different moves interact very differently. We had to sit down and do some practice stuff just to find out how Parental Bond interacts with various moves. Like, it doesn't affect Beat Up at all. You literally get the fixed, like, you know, 6 or 5 hits or whatever.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give you any extras. You know, when you Circle Throw, you do damage twice, but you only phase once. You know, you only get one opponent switch. You know, Sucker Punch hits twice. You know, there's so many things. And obviously, you know, Nihilus' team, very funny, has 2 Pokemon with complex bands, because Cyclizar can't use Shed Tail, and Mega Kangaskhan can't use Seismic Toss. And we'll get back to Cyclizar in a minute, but Seismic Toss is one of those moves that interacts weird with Parental Bond, because Seismic Toss does a fixed amount of damage that never changes, and Parental Bond does not reduce that damage. So you're going to be doing, you know, your level, which is generally going to be 100. You're doing 100 damage twice, just straight up, no drawbacks.
Yeah. A stunning, like, 10-point pick. And then again, the fact that, looking at the rest of the team, and the fact that we only have 2 7-pointers, and the rest are actually 5 points or lower, says a lot, because the Pokemon that are here, I think, are very good. Deoxys Defense, stunning. I wanted to draft it this season, actually, and did not get a chance for it. Vikavolt, at 4 points for a Terra option with 145 special attack, is stupid.
And it gets webs. Don't forget about the webs.
It gets webs. Blastoise, Rapid Spin, Shell Smash, fantastic. Cyclizar also Rapid Spins. Cannot Shed Tail, because...
But it has a lot of other utility.
Yeah, there's so much that it does. It's really fast. It does a few things really well, and it hits pretty hard, too. Tinkaton's funny. I love Tinkaton. Fairy Steel is always a good typing.
Mm-hmm.
Smeargle does anything and everything, but mostly it does Spore. It does, oh my gosh, what was it? It does Spore and something else.
Like hazards. A lot of the time.
Yeah. Nihilego, go fast, hit hard specially as well. I love Articuno. I've actually always loved that Pokemon. That's one of my favorite Pokemon. But, you know, it's decently bulky. If you don't have to deal with rocks, Articuno is just kind of takes hits, and it can also just deal hits too.
Yeah. Articuno has great stats for a 2-pointer. It's just, you know, again, hampered by that Ice Flying typing, which is defensively pretty poor, and especially gets shredded by Stealth Rocks.
Yeah. Meganium's here too. I
didn't even mention Golurk either. You just skipped right over it.
I did skip over Golurk. I love Meganium personally. It is just rough stats. It does not have a decent ability to use. It doesn't get any other cheeky little grass moves here and there either. It doesn't get Trailblaze, if I remember correctly.
Meganium is not great at anything. Meganium just really struggles to differentiate itself from other defensive grass types, because its main draw is kind of like its general bulk, but it kind of has that problem, you know, they call it kind of, you know, depending on who you ask, you know, they'll say it's like the Hoenn syndrome, where it's like splitting its attacking stats between both attack and special attack, so it's just bad at doing both. Its defenses are good, but, you know, it doesn't really excel at either. 80 HP and I think base 100 both defenses is nice, but when you look at this thing, it's just straight, all of its stats are 100 or lower. So it's good at some stuff, like it's okay at being bulky, but it's just not great at doing anything.
Yeah, it does set up screens and leech seed, so there's that. Golurk though is funny. I love Golurk. That thing gets Klutz and that thing gets no guard, and it gets dynamic punch, which is really, really silly.
Yeah, it gets interesting abilities. That no guard dynamic punch you're going to see most of the time, but it does have that sort of low punny cheese strat, which is Klutz lets you... Basically, Klutz ignores the effect of your held item, which sounds detrimental, and in most cases is, but that also means that you can do weird stuff like trick Assault Vests, because Assault Vest prevents you from doing non-damaging moves, but if you're ignoring that, then you can give the Assault Vest to other Pokemon, which is insanely crippling depending on what you give it to. Like an Assault Vest Chansey is going to be garbage, right? Other stuff in this division is going to hate being, completely shut down by being tricked in Assault Vest. So that's not usually going to be preferable. Like, obviously, between tricking Chansey to Assault Vest and just killing it in one shot with a no-guard dynamic punch, there's a preferable, pick between the two. But it's just like a thing you can think about. And Golurk is such a good typing that is, again, very similar to like Delphox. It's just going to kind of paper over holes in a lot of drafts, like sort of later on when you're looking at things like, do I have a ghost, like a spin blocker? Do I have a ground type, like an electric immunity? Yeah. Golurk is just good at filling a handful of different niches.
Yeah, and overall, this is genuinely a really fun draft. I like a lot of the makeups. We don't have a lot of heavy special attack hitters, but again, Articuno, Vikavolt is the heaviest hitting hitter here, and then Nihilus goes right there as well, so you don't really need that much else, and the same goes for the attack. Mega Kangaskhan's right there, and Golurk also hits really hard, but a lot of Nihilus's team isn't necessarily that. There's aspects of setup that you can just play with it, which is really fun. Also, Deoxys defense is here, and that thing is just dumb with its setup moves and like rocks and hazards and stuff. And then
you want to talk about bulk and utility, like Deoxys defense is really good for that stuff. And it can also...
Right?
It gets body press. It gets recover. Well, does it get body press? I don't know.
Remember,
I was gonna trust you, but then if you're showing any doubt, you should definitely check that.
I'm checking.
What I know Deoxys defense does is it can seismic toss. I've seen it. I used it before.
It does not. I lied.
You liar. It can set up like cosmic power and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure in that dex it can toxic things. And it's so good at setting up hazards, and even in some scenarios you can kind of set up like maybe weakness policy, agility cheese, because it's got like pretty workable attack stats too if you want to kind of bend it to do that.
It's also got extreme speed too.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that Deoxys defense is honestly pretty solid at, but most of the time, yes, it's going to just be very defensive and kind of setting up hazards and things.
Yeah. No, it's a solid team. I like it a lot. I think it's very fun. But you know what?
Yeah.
We have other teams to look at.
Don't we ever? One of those teams is ASCII. He coaches the Philadelphia Phantumps, and his draft looks like this. It's got Tapu Koko and Iron Moth. Wow! Charizard Mega Y, Uxie, Kingdra, Terra Captain Lucario, Hisuian Lilligant, Alolan Golem, Trapinch, Galarian Ponyta, and Cottony. He's really Mr. Worldwide. He's got something from, he's got regional forms from Galar, Alola, and Hisui.
He really does. So I've got a question. Kingdra's here on a Sun team.
Well, okay, I'm going to hedge you off at the pass here. This isn't really a Sun team. This
Mega
is...
Charizard Y, Drought. It's right there.
Well, okay. So let's talk about it. Mega Charizard Y is kind of like a semi-Sun guy, because yes, you're right, it does get Drought, but because it doesn't have the ability to run an item by virtue of the fact that it has to have its Mega Stone, and to even get Drought, it has to be Mega Evolved. So that's not even like a complex rule set thing. That's just mechanically necessary. You can't extend the Drought. You can't run a Heat Rock. It's just going to be like that 4 turns. And it's also... when you look at Sun abusers on this team, what have you got? You've got Hisui and Lilligant, and that's it.
Oh, okay, well, electric terrain's there, though. Look, Tapu Koko and Iron Moth, you get a little electric terrain core.
Yeah, well, that's where it starts and ends. The thing about ASCII's draft that's really interesting is, it kind of harkens back, I think, to last season or even the season before when people were kind of being a little goofy and running these sort of split weather cores. Like, I've got a couple of Sun guys, a couple Water guys, well... These little cores are really strong, and I don't think it's terrible for ASCII because each of these little micro cores is, comprised of independently strong Pokemon. Iron Moth is going to be good whether or not you have, free Quark Drive from Electric Terrain, right? Hisuian Lilligant is also going to be pretty decent even without Sun, although it's obviously bolstered by Sun with Chlorophyll. But a Sun team and an Electric Terrain team, this is not really. You don't see like unburdened Electric Seed users. You don't see a ton of future Paradoxmons. Conversely, you don't see anything with Photosynthesis. You only see like the one Chlorophyll user. There's a lot of stuff here that's like fine to unaffected to even hindered by the environmental stuff, particularly like you mentioned earlier, Kingdra in Sun. What are you doing here, man? That's there's not really a strong synergy there.
Yeah, and on top of that, also looking at the stats, I don't know if you saw the HP average stats, but when Iron Moth and Golem Alola are your strongest health Pokemon, I think that says something as well. There's some bulk here now. All bulk is not just HP. HP plays a large part of bulk, but Uxie's here with 130 defenses, and it has utility. We've seen it used really well last season.
I believe Not Pimp had Uxie last time and used to quite good effect.
Yeah. On top of that, I see things I really enjoy. I love Lucario Terra. I think that's a really, really good Terra Pokemon. Honestly, there's a lot of stuff that it can do.
Yeah, I think just across the board, ASCII has some very solid stuff, but I don't see a particular cohesion or team strategy. He's got a lot of specialized Pokemon, but not a lot of ways that they are, enabled broadly. There's little things, but your Lilligant's, best case scenario got 3 turns of Sun to work with. Yeah. Your Iron Moth can get a longer, Electric Terrain, but what if there's a strong ground type on the opposing team and it's just good at killing Coco and Moth? Then it's just shoot, they don't really cover each other. Where's your other Pokemon that maybe are going to be better, or are you going to be stuck running an air balloon, or there's a lot of little things that could synergize better that I'm just not really seeing out of ASCII. So we're gonna just have to see if basically Coco and Megazord Y and Iron Moth are capable of just by themselves justifying their high value as being independently strong even without needing field control.
Yeah, but Trapinch is here. I love Trapinch.
He's kind of funny.
He is funny.
He did pretty okay last season. Yeah. I think Ground actually got multiple kills with it.
He got 3 kills in one game with it, I'm pretty sure.
I think he got 3 kills total and only 2 of them were in one game. I don't have the stats in front of me, but he definitely used it to great effect, and I would, at one point, it's one of those things sure, why not? Yeah. You might as well. I don't know what Galarian Ponyta is doing here. I would be shocked to see it ever do anything.
It's here to hang out.
It is just here to hang out. I mean, and it's, it's a good cheerleader. It's, you get the pom-poms and,
I can see that, absolutely. I think the only other thing I've noticed is water and ground types are really mean to this team.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, again, water is somewhat mitigated by the temporary sun that you're getting from Mega Charizard, but, to limited success. And also, ASCII's hazard control isn't my favorite because, Mega Charizard Y is so weak to rocks and has no way of running boots.
I get Defog.
Well, it gets Defog, which it can use after it switches in on rocks, so not great. I mean, there's a couple other Defog options, Coco gets Defog, and even Hisuian Lilligant gets Defog. But the problem also is that Defog is going to remove Electric Terrain, so it makes it even harder to abuse it if you're trying to use that as your hazard control. There's no spinners here at all, so just going to be something to be aware of. ASCII is going to have to be pretty proactive in addressing those problems.
Yeah. But again, Lilligant Hisui by itself with a little bit of sun, even if it is a few turns, that thing can absolutely start just KOing Pokemon really well. And Iron Moth with Electric Terrain is just terrifying. Plus, there's other silly little gimmicks. Electric Seed is the thing you can give to some other Pokemon you have and get some cheeky little stuff out of that.
The thing is, it's just Electric Seed is preferable on stuff with Unburdened. You'd see that on something like Hawlucha to enable it to sweep, or I don't know. It's like not off the table. Like it's not, it's just not, again, a specialized team into doing that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how ASCII plays and how well this team performs, because I could see it doing well, but I think that he might want to consider maybe reassessing, doing some trades if possible, seeing if he can maybe lean heavily or more heavily into doing, electric terrain or sun or, some combination.
But can I tell you about probably my favorite team in this division so far? I'm not going to like biases. I love the makeup of this team. Can I tell you about the Bidwell Bees with Coach Goober?
I would be delighted if you would do that for me.
New players, well, to the draft. We have Lando I, we have Mega Beedrill, Arcanine Hisui, Magnezone, Terra Captain Brute Bonnet, Cloyster, Hitmonlee, Moltres Galar, Terra Captain Guzzlord, and Mawile. What a stacked team, because the average attack stat is 107.
Absolutely ludicrous. I was having to do some kind of fine tuning on the draft assistant when I was putting together the draft planner, and I was kind of like, what should the average attack stat really be? And I think we landed on something like 80 or 85, or maybe even 75. And his average attack stat far exceeds any of the benchmarks that I put as the recommended amount. I mean, this team is just strong.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned Goobers being new to draft. That is true that he's new to draft. He's actually a very old school Pokemon Smowdown player. Again, we're talking about like 10 years out at this point.
Crazy.
He was playing with us during like Gen 6 OU and those old like Twitch livestream tournaments, and he did fairly respectably in that format. So he's not coming in with no experience, but he's been out of the game for a long time. Draft is a new format. But as I was saying in the other division recap when I was talking about Magma's division analysis, I think that draft is a good format for people who have like kind of an older Pokemon knowledge, because you can apply those fundamentals and you only have to learn the specifics of up to 12 Pokemon per week. That's a lot more doable than having to learn what everything in the meta is capable of doing.
Yeah, no, that's for sure the case. And there's so many fun Pokemon here. So Lando is insane. Amazing typing. Ground Flying is always going to be good. Mega Beedrill sure stabs you and kills you with 145 base speed and 150 attack. And it's like, you look at his team, it's not very fast. But Mega Beedrill with a simple U-turn with that much attack and stab is stupid.
Yeah. Beedrill, like you say, it is basically the most min-maxed Pokemon possible. It is just the epitome of all of my stuff is in attack and speed, and I have nothing for defenses. So if I hit you, you die. If you hit me, I die. Like, it is very much boiled down to, can you live my hit, or I will die. And honestly, Goober has a team that I think is really solid at enabling that behavior from Beedrill. And, to an extent, Landorus is not nearly as min-max. It's a lot more bulky and has a much better typing, but it also, benefits from the same kind of field control that Goober wants to see. Goober's got, Hisui and Arcanine, very splashable and good, great at being offensive, great at being, sort of utility defensive with Intimidate. But yeah, I mean, Rockhead Head Smash is like, pop, 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 he does so much damage. Magnezone, very bulky, good at trapping some annoying types for Landorus. Like, if Landorus was in front of something like Corviknight or Skarmory or whatever, it would be stuck. So that's like, Magnezone can bait and trap those things. I don't think any of those Pokemon actually ended up in his division, but it's a good team building thought. And even without having to worry about those Pokemon, like, slow analytic, like Volt switching and stuff like that, like Magnezone is so tough, it's very good at doing stuff like that.
It's something you had last season. I actually, looking at this draft, there's not a lot of bulky Pokemon really when you look at this, except for Brute Bonnet, which is a Terra Captain, and Guzzlord, which is a Terra Captain. Those are stunning options because it's like, you don't need more bulk than that really. Obviously Cloyster's here and so is Moltres Galar, which can be a little bulky. But like, those are some stunning options for this. And Brute Bonnet, as you had last season, Spore is so good on that thing, and then it just hits really hard.
Yeah, Brute Bonnet is really, really solid, and part of what Brute Bonnet struggles with is that it's just weak to so much stuff. Grass Dark is a pretty terrible defensive typing, but if you Terra out of it, suddenly you're not quad weak to U-turn. You are not, you can get rid of that fighting weakness, that fire weakness, that flying weakness, that ice weakness. And I think Brute Bonnet is going to do a really good job of abusing Terra. And Guzzlord, same deal. It is so weak to stuff like Low Kick or Fairy or Dragon or U-Turn. Again, U-Turn is just such a problem. He can Terra out of that weakness. And he's also, depending on how he plays his team, Arcanine and Mawile can kind of double intimidate, just keep switching back and forth. He might be a little bit afraid of ground-type moves, but he's got Moltres, Brute Bonnet, Landorus to kind of handle that. Mm-hmm. He could run Air Balloon on Magnezone. He's got all these really cool things, and what we were talking about when we were going over this in the note-taking is that he's got so many things that just sweep so effectively,
yes.
Depending on the matchup, Galarian Moltres, Agility, Berserk, that wins,
Yeah.
Guzzlord with proper setup, Beast Boost, Snowball, it wins.
Yeah.
Hisuian Arcanine, again, so powerful, has just the right stuff that if you wanted to run it, surprise offensive instead of bulky defensive, you just win. Mega Beedrill speaks for itself. It wins. Landorus Incarnate speaks for itself. It could just win. So he's got so many scary things that also, just could win.
Cloyster and Hitmonlee are also right there. Hitmonlee and Hitmonlee gets Unburdened, and then it has 120 attack already, and it hits really hard, has a good move variety. Cloyster is stupid with Skill Link.
Yep, Shell Smash, Skill Link, Icicle Spear, is all reliable, and it's so good and very hard to deal with. It's also a pretty solid spinner in defensive Pokemon if you needed to be one.
There's so much versatility to this team. I really love the makeup. I think it's really fun, but there's so much week to week he could do. And here's the thing, looking at the team. We have one 10-pointer, and then everything else is like 7 points or less, which is stunning point value. Like, I don't know another team that had this kind of point variation of just like a lot of low points. But again, just the way what Goober grabbed and what he utilized for this stuff feels really fun, because he can do anything. Again, he can be bulky Arcanine, he can be fast Arcanine, try and kill you as well if he needs to. He can set up with Cloyster, or he can be bulky with Cloyster. He can set up with Guzzlord, or he can be bulky with the Guzzlord. Same with Brute Bonnet. You can that can actually just do some real good damage too, and not just be a bulky wall.
Brute Bonnet, everything, this draft has options, and it is, always going to be working towards that end game of like setup sweeping with something. Mm-hmm. And I really like it. I really like Goober's draft. I think it is a smart pickup. I think it'll probably be somewhat, what he has to be focused on is like field control, making sure that he's not webbed, making sure that he's got his rocks up, distributing like status where possible, weakening things, positioning. Like, he's gonna have to think more about like the stage than I think most players will. But when he gets a guy in a good position with all the right stuff in all the right places, it's gonna become really hard to stop the sweep. And he gets so many chances depending on what he brings per game to get that sweep.
This is basically a sweep or B-sweep team if you're going up against Goober. You need to set up before Goober's able to. And the problem is that you're going to face when fighting Goober's team is there's so much versatility with everything, and the type coverage is solid. I don't see a lot of major things, maybe a bit of a fighting weakness for sure, but with Brute Bonnet and Guzzlord both being Terra options, that kind of gets rid of that fighting weakness initially.
Yeah. So I like it. I think this is an awesome team. I think it might take a little bit of getting used to, especially if he's been out of the meta for a while. But I think, with the right practice, it's going to go crazy. I'm really excited to watch these replays.
For sure. But we got 2 teams left. Can you tell me about Black Captain, who's back from last season?
Oh, I will. This is the Martian Mantines Black Captain, coming off of, I think, his first playoffs ever last season, having actually advanced into round 2 even. Mm-hmm. Black Captain with a crazy-looking draft, Urshifu Single Strike, Galarian Slowking, Hisuian Typhlosion Terra Captain, Garganacl, Araquanid, Toedscruel, Hydreigon, Silvally, Illumise, and Rapidash. A lot of Pokemon names are hard to say, I'm realizing, as I do it.
A lot of A's.
A lot of A's. This is awesome. This actually kind of harkens back to a couple seasons ago where Jason had both Galarian Slowking and Urshifu Single Strike, and used both to great effect. It's a very Isle of Armor kind of team. Or maybe this is actually a Crown Tundra kind of team, because Galarian Slowking is from Crown Tundra, but I digress. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Black Captain has a really cool looking team. Urshifu is just so strong. It's just so good at everything that it wants to do. You know, Sucker Punch, Sword Stance, Wicked Blow, Close Combat. You know, it can pivot with U-turn. It's just, you know, it can run Bandit or Setup. Or there's so many things you have to worry about with Urshifu. It's very good. Slow King enables Urshifu very well by being able to slow pivot, get it in safely. Being able to soak hits that maybe Urshifu might be a little more scared of. Obviously, that quad resist to fighting is really nice. Hisuian Typhlosion, great Terra Captain. If you have like Terra Fire, Scarf Eruption, like that's always going to be really, really strong without the right counterplay.
We talked about Knuckle Stack earlier and Garganacles here just to reiterate how dumb it is having that ability on top of Salt here with something that's actually really bulky.
Yeah, this thing doesn't need an Eviolite to be strong, so suddenly you can have Pinchberry, you can have Leftovers, you can have, you know, probably just one of those two things to be honest, but you know, you can have either. And Garganacle, really strong, right? Like you kind of have to bring like a Covert Cloak or you have to get shredded by a very spammable Salt Cure. Garganacle's awesome. Araquanid, fantastic web setter. I really like Araquanid. We saw Milo using it to very great effect last season.
It's a
it
great
had
lead.
a Custat berry basically every week back then. But it is a great lead. Great ability. Toadscruel, terrible ability, but decent enough, wide enough move pool. It does spin, which we like. Hydreigon, very flexible with what it does, very strong. Silvally, ultimate like flexibility, since you can bring it as whatever type you want. You can just patch over any weakness that you have against any draft as you need it.
Illumise is here.
Illumise is here, yeah. It's basically the same Pokemon as Volbeat. They kind of have like swapped offensive stats, but you're not really using the offensive stats on either ever, so it doesn't matter.
Use 47 physical attack on Illumise.
No, U-turn does about 40 damage to, you know, I don't know, Brute Bonnet. Like it's just terrible. It's really, you know, you're gonna just, I mean, you'll probably still be hitting U-turn, but you don't need to invest in making it work. You're just here to hit like Prankster Tailwind, Prankster Thunderwave, you know, stuff like that. And Rapidash is just here again to sort of paper over like a speed deficit and be a fire type that knows some moves.
And that's generally the only thing I really do see with Black Captain's team is there's not a lot of speed control here. Most things being under 100 with Rapidash being your fastest Pokemon is a little rough. Not that you can't work around that, but it's something to keep in mind when, you know, you've seen what other Pokemon are in this draft. And I find often if you're not faster than something that can just come in and kill you, or hit you really hard, you need to be prepared for that.
It's, you know, I think he covers his bases really well. Like you say, there's not even really much to analyze in the way of this draft because it's pretty obvious what the game plan is. It's, you know, use Galarian Slow King to pivot into something like Urshifu or Typhlosion, use Garganacle to soften a bunch of things up, you know, maybe Scarf Hydreigon or Silvally Flame Charge to soften a bunch of things up, and then sweep with Urshifu.
Absolutely. So, and again, Silvally's versatility is so good. I like this draft. I think there's a lot of fun things about it. Not a ton of bulk, but again, Garganacle's right there, actually. Like, again, that bulk, but from the rest of the Pokemon, there's some. Urshifu is actually surprisingly bulky if you're not ready for it. It does take physical hits pretty well.
And, you know, the thing it's just weak to Fairy. It's really, really weak to Fairy. It's one of those quad weak to Fairy. And he's also doubling up on that quad weakness to Fairy with Hydreigon, so...
and there's no Steel
that might
type
be
here
a thing
either,
to
so
consider.
Fairy could be a little bit of an issue if Black Captains keep an eye out on that.
But in general, I still think this looks like a really strong draft, really strong individual pieces. I think good synergies and does a good job of, like, abusing webs. Again, Urshifu loves webs. Eruption Typhlosion loves webs.
And Araquanid is a really good pickup because, you know, we were talking about the speed stat. Getting webs is just so good for this. I don't think there's much else to say. This is one of those drafts I think that speaks for itself.
You are going to see very similar games playing out every week, I think, especially given how, again, weak the sort of bottom half is. Like, you're only going to see Toadscruel if you absolutely have to. You're only going to see Illumise if you absolutely have to. You're only going to see Rapidash if you absolutely have to. Most of the time, you're going to be seeing Urshifu, Slowking, Typhlosion, Garganacle, Araquanid, and, like, Silvally or Hydreigon.
No, for sure. But with that, we are down to our last team in the Rocket Division. It is Bananas, coach of the Don't Drop That Dedennes, with A stellar first pick, by the way, in Terra Captain Reuniclus. And then we got Iron Bundle, Aegislash, Terra Captain Cinccino, Altaria Mega, Tentacruel, Terra Captain Rotom Fan, Gligar, Beware, Persian Alola, and Swirlix. This team is crazy.
This team is awesome. Again, I love everything's got webs here, man. It's just such a sticky division. I don't like that. I don't like touching it. I don't like it. Get me out of Rocket. Yeah, this you can see just based on the draft order, him immediately gunning for Terra Captain Reuniclus just, I think, tells you everything you need to know about how strong that is. Reuniclus is already such a difficult Pokemon to break with the way that it can defensively set up and with Magic Guard. Mm-hmm. Add to that now the ability to Terra out of a Dark weakness or Ghost weakness or whatever. Suddenly this thing is really terrifying and very hard to deal with if you don't have like very specific answers. And it's well supported, Aegislash, Iron Bundle, just fantastic Pokemon in their own right. Cinccino with Terra is actually, obviously you can't run both. You have to pick one to Terrastalize in a given match, but if Cinccino comes in and just soften things up with like a Terra Normal or Terra Grass, like Tail Slap or Bullet Seed, you can see that with Technician loaded dice. It's going to do so much damage.
Yeah.
Mega Altaria also, again, something that you maybe don't think about a lot in the context of drafts, but when you see it, that Dragon Fairy typing really strong, Dragon Dancing up, and being able to hit those, really strong like stab boosted moves.
Gligar are really good, and so much deceptive bulk here. Because again, looking at the HP stats, you're like, oh, they're not that bulky, but it's like Reuniclus alone with the defenses it has is stupid with the Terra. Aegislash with 140 defenses in shield form is really insane. Altaria Mega, to you get electric or water moves and stuff. It resists those things really well with some decent defensive stats.
It also loses its quad weakness to ice, which is nice.
Yeah, which is fantastic. Rotom Fan, because it can Terra, 50 HP is not amazing, but 107 defenses with a Terra option is really nice. Beware, with 120 HP, and then is it a Fur Coat that it gets?
It's Fluffy, I believe.
Yeah, it's Fluffy. Sorry, Fur Coat is the Alolan Persian down there.
Yep. And don't forget about, Gligar with Eviolite
and
Tentacruel with just an obscenely high special defense, too. Like, all of this stuff is really hard to hit.
It is, yeah. It's a really fun draft. Cinccino, again, I'm so excited to see, what Bananas does with that, because as we've seen from Bananas is a playoffs contender, often makes the playoffs, and I think has every season that he's been in.
Oh, I wouldn't even call him a playoffs contender. I think he's a playoff staple. Like, Bananas, his first season he ever played, main season, he just straight up won. It was season 6.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He, I think, only even lost, one game in division, and that was it. So, he did so good off rip, and he was poised to make a pretty deep playoff run last season as well. But, again, stopped short by Milo. Got a little bit unlucky, but, again, neither here nor there. Bananas is one of the top seeds out of this division, and part of the reason why this division looks so scary. And I just fully believe that he's going to use these things to great success. I kind of love Iron Bundle, because Iron Bundle, if you're trying to maximize damage output, is actually going to be very reliant on inaccurate moves. You see this a lot in VGC, where Iron Bundle, at least saw some play in certain regulations. It's like, oh, this thing really loves hitting Blizzard and Hydro Pump, It also gets obviously Freeze Dry and Flip Turn for general purpose utility because it has, it's a Quark Drive Pokemon. It can benefit from booster energy. In general, Bundle's super splashable and just really, really strong.
Yeah. By the way, Fluffy is taking half damage from contact moves and 2 times damage from fire moves. But, and then Swirlix down here is really silly because that gets sticky webs. And then you might think, well, that's probably all it does. Well, it also explodes.
Yes, Swirlix. So this is a thing that Slurpuff is good at doing. Slurpuff is good at doing a handful of different things, but one of the ways that it likes to be played is as a suicide webs lead. So Slurpuff will come out, hit Sticky Web, get knocked down to a Sash, or to use a Pinch Berry or whatever, just depending on the calcs or what you're expecting to be the counter lead. But turn 1, it uses Sticky Web, lives a hit, consumes its item, activates Unburdened. Then it's faster than whatever's in front of it, but if that thing can defog or Sticky Web or whatever, you can just blow up with Misty Explosion, and it's not even to get damage, it's just to make sure that your opponent cannot then click a move that removes the webs. Mm-hmm. So it's this kind of very specific combination of traits that makes it good at setting webs and good at preventing them from being immediately removed by something that would otherwise be able to do that.
Yeah.
Slurpuff can belly drum and drain punch, or, do these other kind of like annoying clerical things. Swirlix is more or less only ever going to be here for sticky webs as a suicide lead. That is all it can do.
And then on top of that, Persian Lola actually gets Parting Shot, Switcheroo, and other silly dark things. It's 115 base speed, by the way. And it does get Technician, and it also does stuff. But generally, actually, all in all, I really like this team. Not generally. I do like this team. It's really fun, really cool, and I think Bananas, with the kind of player he is and the way we've seen him play, is going to be a very standout player in this division overall.
Yeah. I love Bananas. I think he's so good. He's just such a gamer. Again, he comes from like these, he was like a world-class melee player, when he was like getting ranked that high, and actively going to like majors and stuff. So he's one of those people that are coming into Double Dip in general with just like a super hardcore competitive mindset. Has a background in tournaments and things like that. Nihilus also has a background in tournaments. Mm-hmm. You broaden your scope outside of the division. A lot of people are coming in from like these hybrid esports backgrounds, but Bananas was just like the greatest example of somebody who came in, not necessarily specialized into Pokemon, but just had the gamer genes. Was more than capable of just immediately obliterating our entire draft league. So Bananas is besides Aurora, like the top seed threat in this division, somebody to look out for, and somebody whose draft looks very creative and very scary.
Yeah. But overall, I'm excited for the new players, see how they do. I think the new players' drafts both look really good. That's so exciting. And then I'm just excited for the season to like properly kick off and we get some matches going. I think it's going to be a great time. I'm excited for Season 8. I think this is going to be our biggest season yet.
Yeah, I think production value-wise, player count, frankly, overall draft power, like I think we're going to be seeing a lot of things just going crazy this division in this season in general, and I'm really excited to see how it all shakes out.
Yeah. But with that being said, I don't think there's much else to go over for the Rocket division. We've been here for a little bit now, about an hour. Sweet, awesome.
Not bad.
Not bad, not bad, not bad. But I want to thank you all so much for joining us, and I'm so excited to participate with all of you and you, Spood, in Season 8 of Double Dip Draft. I think we're going to see a lot of shakeups with the top players, with IDM not being here. I think with all the new players, we can see some really cool stuff happen in like kind of the middle area as well, and just see like where everything lands. I think this is going to be like the season to watch.
I have no clue who is making it to playoffs. I have a good idea of maybe like a third of the players that are going to make it, and everything else is just going to be a wild ride, beginning to end. I'm super duper excited, and I'd highly recommend, if you enjoyed this or are interested in hearing some more about what's going on in Double Dip Draft this season, check out the companion videos. You can hear my opinion on the Magma division if you want to go and watch that analysis. If you're interested in hearing more from Cabral, you can go check out the Aqua division recap or analysis. Mm-hmm. And if you want to see what my draft has on it, then you can watch the Skull division analysis to see what I picked.
Yeah, but either way, thank you all so much for joining us, and we will see you throughout the season. Goodbye.
Goodbye.